The Trump regime DOJ has suffered multiple fatal blows in court in Eastern District of Virginia and Washington, D.C., where these federal judges and federal juries, let's just say, have made very strong statements and very strong orders against the Trump regime. Let's talk about briefly just the James Comey case, where the government in all of their motions so far, to try to delay this thing, to put some unusual protective orders on Comey. The government's been losing all of its gambits. The Trump administration suffered a major blow in the Comey case this week, where the federal judge overseeing that case in Virginia denied the Justice Department's request for extended discovery deadlines. They wanted to delay. And Comey's like, nope, give me the documents. I want to know who person 1 and person 3 is, because we have no clue who the hell you're talking about. So we have that going on. Pay attention there, because these motions in that case are set to be filed on Monday. The motions to dismiss are going to be filed. It's a rocket docket there, and I think we're going to find some explosive information, because the discovery is now being turned over to Comey, and I think we're going to find some explosive information there. Then, in the Eastern District of Virginia, another federal courtroom, just in an unrelated matter, a Trump-appointed judge by the name of Judge David Novak, and just an unrelated criminal sentencing case, heaped praise on all of the Virginia prosecutors out of that Eastern District federal prosecutorial office, who the Trump regime fired and got rid of and forced out. The judge turns to the government and says, as to the government, here's what I want you to know about these prosecutors, because they were also involved in this case. These 3 career prosecutors upheld the highest standards that we expect from the Department of Justice. They too should be exceptionally proud of their work. And I cannot overstate the importance of the career prosecutors to the mission of justice. For it is they, the career prosecutors, not the political appointees, that come and go with each administration, that carry out the torch of justice that lights our nation's path forward. Although I will not comment on why one of those prosecutors, Mr. Edwards, is no longer employed by the Department of Justice, who the Trump regime pushed out, I do want to say how saddened I am that I will not have the privilege of him appearing in my courtroom again. I'm even more disheartened to know that the Department of Justice and our nation will be deprived of his obvious talents and integrity going forward, because his work has been truly exceptional in every way, as has been all of the lawyers involved in this case. I will leave you with this quote from our former great president, Dwight Eisenhower, who saved the world from authoritarianism when he served as the leader of the Allied forces in World War II. Just be clear, this is a Trump-appointed judge clearly comparing the current state of the United States to authoritarianism, and then invoking the name of Dwight Eisenhower as somebody defeating authoritarianism. Here's the quote from Eisenhower. Freedom has its life in the hearts, the actions, the spirit of men, and so it must be daily earned and refreshed, else like a flower cut from its life-giving roots, it will wither and die. Powerful words right there. And then also, while all this was going on, in Washington, D.C., federal courthouse there, Sidney Laurie Reed, the individual who the federal prosecutor there, Jeanine Pirro, the former Fox host, tried to shop this case to 3 grand juries. None of them would indict this lady, Sidney Laurie Reed, on felony counts regarding something that they said she did with ICE, some bullshit. And the case was then brought as a misdemeanor. And then after getting rejected from 3 grand juries, the jury in the misdemeanor case unanimously rejected even that, because they went around the grand jury for them to try a misdemeanor case, and which never happens like this after getting rejected from the grand jury 3 times. The jury there rejected the case, and it was a not guilty. Let me bring in Harry Litman to help tie it all together, what I just tied together, and unpack it, I should say. Harry Litman runs the Talking Feds YouTube channel and the Talking Feds Substack and the Talking Feds podcast. So a lot of action taking place in the Eastern District of Virginia on the Comey case, in Washington, D.C., the Trump-appointed judge, Judge Novak. Break it all down for us, Harry.
Yeah, and a lot of slapdowns of the administration, and very justified. Here's the main kind of bottom line that this brings home to me, Ben. You know, from the very start, you can think of Judge Jeb Boasberg in March and the orders and all the follow through that he's tried to do to make the administration adhere to the law, and the immediate reflexive response from Trump and the Trump administration. This is a crazy leftist judge. We knew that dog didn't hunt with Boasberg in particular, Brett Kavanaugh's law school roommate and the like. But the point is that everyone who knows the story, who has the sort of sophistication of understanding how things work at DOJ and in Washington, unanimously sees what's going on, sees who's telling the truth, and who, there's no other word for it, is lying. And you could say the same thing of that DC jury. But Trump appointee, EDVA, but he understands that the career prosecutors and their purging here for nakedly political reasons is A, unjust, and B, bad business for the country. And in a similar way, you maybe saw a couple days ago a survey that Emily Bazelon did in the New York Times, 50 lawyers, kind of Washington, D.C., wise beards in the DOJ previously, and most importantly, half Republican, half Democrat. They said to a person unanimously that the Department of Justice is now improperly politicizing prosecutions. So it makes it all the more galling, I guess you could say. I feel that way as an ex-DOJ guy, that the president, the attorney general, and everyone in the political ranks there just completely continue to falsely represent, for example, oh, things were weaponized under Biden and now we do it cleanly. It's not even a partisan issue. Anyone who understands how things work understands that these are really historic level villains who are absolutely gutting the Department of Justice in a grave way. And it's just brazen, sort of Orwellian lies that that permit them to say this, these complete fictions. But the of course concern is you say them enough, and you, with the bully pulpit of the presidency, and maybe in some way the people who are not right up against it say, oh, well, sounds like both sides do it or whatever. Not at all true. Importantly, not at all true, but seems to be the broader strategy. But any way you look at people who know what's happening, they're unanimous, and it's got nothing to do with party affiliation.
Harry, while we're at the subject, let's talk though about some of these other cases that are being brought, not just the Comey case. There's New York Attorney General Letitia James, and then there's also the John Bolton, although that was in Maryland. So while we're here talking about it, the way I read it is you have two obviously frivolous, vexatious, just horrific. I mean, Letitia James and Comey.
Selective prosecutions,
But the issue, though, I mean, perhaps if you're Bolton here, you do a different track. The Bolton track is probably this for strategy here. If you're James and you're Comey, you're going push fast. Let's do this. Show us your documents. Now, to me, if you're Bolton, where the prior administration looked at these facts and didn't see anything there that rose to the level of kind of a criminal prosecution with the requisite level of intent. Bolton, I think, is going to push his case on a long track, and try to, I don't think he's going to want this to be speedy. I think he's going to go 2 to 3 years, try to wait out this regime, have Trump fall, lose the Comey case, lose the James case, harness that energy. Look, these are all bullshit cases. And what do you make of it, though? Because it's a little bit different. There does seem to be sloppiness from Bolton, surprising because of how careful he portrays himself. Does the sloppiness rise to a level of some sort of classified retention, of the national defense. What do you make of all of these three?
Yeah, it's a really great question. First and foremost, I feel as someone who's been so deeply appalled and offended by what they've done with Comey and James, I don't want to just lump Bolton in. I think it just dilutes the power of what they're clearly doing. And very significant to me, both Comey and James, you have, Lindsay Halligan, who doesn't know her where the courtroom or the water fountains are, going in and doing, obviously Trump's bidding. This case against Bolton, out of a different office, and the prosecutor, 12-year career guy, head of their national security. So that's a big difference already. And I think it points to, at most, a kind of bad mixing of political and solid kinds of reasons. And then the evidence itself, as you say, so a lot of the stuff seems like maybe it's a kind of violation, but is it, why did Biden pass on it? Is it ticky-tack? But there is this one. My bottom line on Bolton is, unlike with Comey and James, 30 seconds after seeing that 2-page piece of trash indictment in either case, you knew it was garbage. Bolton, even after seeing the indictment, it's a little puzzling because some of it seems like it's, technical. On the other hand, man, oh man, Ben, you know this, I know this. He apparently not just kept a diary, but shared it with his wife and daughter, who are on systems that weren't classified. An actual hack by a foreign country occurred. So this is no, kind of easy walk on the beach, as you put it. And I think strategically for him, but also politically or just ethically for us, I really want to keep Bolton separate from Comey and James, who, as you say, Comey on Monday will bring the first of his 2 motions to dismiss. That's the one about whether whether Halligan was properly appointed. But I think that's going to move pretty quickly. And Nachmanoff, the judge here, set a January 5th trial date that seemed like a placeholder to me. But he said, he's serious. He is rebuffing the U.S.'s efforts to try to stall and maybe say there's classified information involved. You're saying, oh, come on. So I think things are going to roll out pretty quickly there, and in a way that is really damning to the United States. It's such a naked reprisal. And by the way, to prove it, I think they'll have a right to. A really important thing to keep our eyes on is, will they ask for and receive discovery from, because the argument here is the order came from on high. So from Bondi, Halligan, and Donald Trump, who, maybe will be ordered to sit for a deposition. He's the one who knows. Of course, we also already have the document that just shows his instructions, indict them with having nothing to do with any possible crimes. So anyway, pristine examples there. Bolton, I find, a little bit murky even after the indictment, but it really, the DOJ used to have a presumption of regularity, right, before Bondi and company ruined it. And if we were operating in that setting, you would apply it here because of the person who's doing it, the way they've been investigating it. And it still matters to me that was the person who did it, as opposed to these hacks that they've installed, back at DOJ. So the Bolton one, I think, is just a sort of unclear, murky situation until the U.S. has to come forward and put up its proof.
Everybody subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel. It's called Talking Feds. His Substack, guess what it's called? Talking Feds. Yeah. And his podcast, it's called Talking Feds. Subscribe.
We ran out of ideas, we just really like that one.
And then subscribe here. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.